What's up, YouTube fam? So we got the blade all nice and finished now today, and here it is. So this is what I call a Yakult Yay cut. It's actually basically influenced by the Yakult knives, the Pulkos that you find sort of Karelia, Siberia, whatever, and I'm using a similar style of forging to create kitchen knives that are single beveled and chef's knives. Now the reason I've made these is because I have a sort of affinity for single beveled knives. I really like single beveled blades. There's a lot of reasons for that. One, they cut super well. I mean, they cut very nicely, and they're very sharp knives. Another thing too is that they're actually relatively more straightforward to maintain than a lot of the double beveled knives, because you're only really focusing on sharpening your secondary bevel and your primary edge, and then you're washing it up on the Ura side, I guess you could call it. And another reason why I like to make these is because, well, I could forge a Giotto, but there's not going to be really anything unique about me forging chef's knives or Giottos unless it's some kind of Damascus and something pretty, right? And the way I like to make things is I like to kind of first focus on the utility function, something unique, something that I can master, something that I can produce that doesn't really exist in the market, serves a purpose, and that I can master in to make. This is in this particular case here, the only way that I can actually forge these is with spring steel. Other steels can't handle the forging techniques that are required to make this the way it is, especially this thin. And that's because there is a certain stage of the forging process which is influenced by Japanese crafts, which is called cold forging, which is when you anneal a blade, and then you do some final shaping using this cold forging technique, which was actually also used in the Middle Ages to forge plates like breastplates and armor. Instead of what they used to do is anneal these sheets of metal and cold forge them to shape. And this actually improves the metallurgy substantially, and it allows a lot of freedom on what you can do with the overall shape and size and of your steel and what you're doing. Much higher carbon steels, like 115 CRV3, 52-100, a lot of these steels, they can't handle that process. They just don't. There's too many carbides, and so they just end up cracking or breaking during that cold forging process. The only way to cold forge those kind of knives is to laminate them. And that's how the Japanese do it with their chef's knives, kitchen knives, Giottos, whatever. When they're cold forging under a power hammer, those are laminated knives generally. And but 5160 actually takes it super well, and really well. And it dramatically improves the quality of the steel too in the final product. It also allows you to have very smooth flat surfaces, very even grinds. It allows you to a huge amount of freedom over what you're doing. So it's kind of interesting that this is actually in some ways like sheet metal work at one stage, or ancient medieval European plate armor sort of forging mechanics involved here, which is very interesting. Now this is the one I made the other day. I actually polished the handle up some more. You guys saw this in my jerky making video, and you can see that it's pretty consistent process between these two. This is kind of like your cleaver, and this is your chef knife version, and I'll be making more of these, of course. I'm not really super much into making like super fancy, artistic knives. I try to make knives that are easy to reproduce, and I have a lot of influence from people like Takeda. And for example, what you see here, you see this at the front there, by having the ring protrude out from the wood goes all the way up here, and there's maybe 2 or 3 millimeters of space at the front where the ring comes out. And what that allows me to do is when I fill up the tang hole full of glue and I stick the blade in, the excess glue comes out and puddles over and seals the front here. Let me just brush off some of this gunk here from the side. And it seals the front and it stops any humidity and stuff like that from going in there. So overall, really clean. The long bolster on this one is something that I really like, and I think I'll do again. It's actually more precise with my machines because I'm using a lathe for a lot of this work for preparing the rings, and it goes flush against the chuck, and you get just slightly better, much more parallel cuts from that. The wood is stabilized, curly birch from the trees outside, and yeah. So I'll be making more of these for sure. I'm kind of tempted to keep this one for myself because I actually need it. That's why I made it, and I made it with the intent of actually keeping it, but it came out so well that I'm kind of tempted to actually sell it. But this one is definitely going to be up for sale. And also stabilized curly birch. It has a very gorgeous pattern, as you can see here, and very manageable. It'll fit in most kitchens. Generally, the issue with blades that are this long is that it doesn't really fit in most people's kitchens nowadays. The tabletops are pretty narrow, and you need a pretty large cutting board too. And when it comes to these kind of single beveled knives with very delicate, fine edges, it helps to have a top grain board as well for maximum effect. Now, I've sold over a dozen of these type of knives, but they used to be a lot smaller, and they're made from other steels too, like K990 steel and stuff like that. So the cold forging process is not limited to laminated steels or 5160. If you play around and test things, you actually find that there's actually a lot of steels out there that can handle that process really, really well. And of course, I understand if some people don't find this kind of blade appealing. For example, a kurouchi finish is not for everybody, right? In Japan, they like to have the ura very polished. I keep this blackening, this kurouchi style finish on there because it's extremely stain resistant. When you're quenching, that quenchant burns on the surface and it seals all these pores and all this surface, and it creates an extremely rust resistant finish, which is nice to have on the blade. And that what happens now is any of the sort of patina that develops on this blade, it'll only form on the sharpening surfaces. So, if I'm using this blade a lot and, it's still really sharp and everything, but I kind of want to get rid of the patina, then it's very easy to just go on the stones and wash it off. And then it's back to being basically brand new. This one was the first sort of experimental supersized yay cut kitchen knife, and it cuts like a dream. It's very, very nice. It fits very nicely in the hand. I've oversized the handles a lot, and of course that is really nice, especially for like large hands and stuff. So you get a lot of purchase, which is important. Once your hands get greasy, full of fat and whatnot, and you're processing maybe 100 kilos of meat or something like that, which I've done many times in my life. After a hunting trip, you're hunting moose, and even if you get 3 small moose, you're processing a lot of meat. There's hundreds of kilos of meat to cut through, and it's nice to have something that you can grab on all day that doesn't slip. And that's why I like the octagonal finish, of course, because that octagonal finish is a little bit more professional for kitchen knives. Sorry, what I've found is that if you're working in a professional kitchen, the octagonal handles are more appealing, and if you're working in like a home kitchen, then the rounded handles appear to be more appealing. So it's an interesting mix of both work. But I like the challenge of making an octagonal handle with a fat ring, and it's a process that I've been developing and perfecting and working on all the time. And I think this is an excellent product. I'm very, very pleased with how this turned out. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to price these. They're basically supposed to be like beater knives, but like awesome big ass, beater knives with very nice cutting and easy sharpening and easy stropping and maintenance and stuff like that. 5160 is also extremely tough, so you're not going to get chipping, you're not going to have blades snapping, and stuff like that. When it's a homogeneous mono steel like this, it's much much tougher like this. And yeah, so this is what we're up to now. I'll be making more of these. I got another cleaver coming up that's kind of much more different than these two, but again, this is not something that I'll stop producing, and they're definitely custom orderable, especially if you go through my Instagram, hot_metal_knives. You can go there and we can organize something like this to produce. I think this is basically the maximum size that we can go with, because my forge, even though it's quite large, any bigger than this and it won't fit in there. And so again, one of the nice things about this type of knife, I can skin with it because of the bowl tip. You get an extreme amount of clearance. So if you're processing plant material, or if you're slicing through wood, sorry, not wood, meat, and so forth, you get a lot of length and height and single beveled, so it cuts very, very nicely. And yeah, HMK. So again, I've tried to make these in laminated, but it's just not worth it. Not without a power hammer. If I had a power hammer, I could do much more laminated stuff. I don't really do forge welding that much anymore. I used to do a lot more of it, but it's just there's a lot of troubles with that. And at the end of the day, unless I'm making something unique, you can get a Super Iogami Core Sanmai stainless cladding, Japanese Giotto for $200 nowadays. So, and I'm producing something more unique. This is more expensive than that, but it's just a cool concept that I'm throwing out there. And yeah, I understand if it doesn't appeal to everybody. It certainly appeals to me, and it certainly appeals to a lot of people, especially when knives get this big and this tall. And that's really all there is to it, guys. So very, very, very thin for a blade like this. Very nice. And one of the other things, there is actually very good food release, because if you notice, the whole Kuroichi surface is actually pointing upwards. So the bevel is this way and the Kuroichi is this way, and that's just a byproduct of this style of forging. So you don't get food stuck up there. It just falls right off, which is pretty neat. And I like also how the grind comes down here like this. That's also intrinsic to how the blades are forged. And yeah, there isn't really any more to it than that, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd like to make forging videos, but the problem with the GoPro is that it just shuts off on itself. It'll run for 2 minutes and then shut off, or it'll run for 10 minutes and then shut off. And sometimes it doesn't save the videos. So I don't know. I got maybe a lemon GoPro or something like that. But I've been trying to make forging videos, how to make videos, but the GoPro is just such a nightmare to use. I have a lot of friends who are film makers and editors, and we're planning some things in the works. But yeah, so this is it, guys. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, you can go to my website to order scalpels. Now I've got these mini strops up there. These are nice to have. Just a thing around your neck, just to keep, just to strop your blade. This one is also available there. And yeah. Have a good day, guys.